Hello guys, so as I told you in this part we're going to be doing Firebase list adapter. So if you can see that inside my main activity I have already included a list view with an ID of list view. In my project level Gradle file I have included my class path. In my app level Gradle file I have included Google services, Firebase database, and one extra thing for this tutorial you will require is the Firebase UI dependency. So make sure you include this one as well, and you are running the latest version of Firebase database, because in previous parts, if you may remember, a few of you guys questioned that whenever we go to the docs we see a different version of Firebase code, and whenever we go to Stack Overflow or any tutorial we see a different version of that code. And that's probably because on Stack Overflow and maybe on tutorials the code is not upgraded, but on the docs the latest code is there. So in this part we're gonna see the latest code of Firebase, and we're going to work with Firebase list adapter. So as you can see that inside my console database I have already included an object named user, and I have included for users just some random names and all. You don't need to worry about that. And one thing you might want to change is go to rules and set the read permissions to true, so that we don't need authentication for user to read this data, because we are just building very simple app. But in later parts when we will be building the chat app we may need to set it back to null. So anyways, if you go back to main activity.java, now you can see that I have already set the reference for my list view. Now as you guys remember, in our application class we used to use this code, that is firebase.set android context, and this was actually the previous version of Firebase. But if you are going to use the Firebase list adapter you may need to upgrade your code, and for the newer version we will be needing this code here in the application class. So if firebase app.getApps is empty, actually it is not empty, then we're going to set the instance for our Firebase database instead of Firebase. So I'm going to remove this code and make sure that you include this code instead of your firebase.set android context. So if you may remember, what we were doing in previous parts was something like this: Firebase, and we named like mref, or maybe just set it to ref equals new Firebase, and here we include our link. So if you go back here, copy this, maybe I'll go to this object, now copy the whole link and paste it over here. Now this was the previous version, and the newer version is something like this. So Firebase database, so we are setting the reference to not exactly that database reference, and I'm going to set it to database reference, and it is going to be equal to Firebase database dot get instance dot get reference from URL. So we are setting the URL inside this one instead of using Firebase client object over here. So I'm going to remove this one, and from now on we're going to be using this Firebase database instance. So this is actually the very same thing that we were using previously, but this is the upgraded code of Firebase. So now you can see that we have set the database reference. So now if you remember guys, in previous parts when we were retrieving data from our database we were setting some array adapters and some child events and all. But for the Firebase UI, if you are using Firebase UI, it's gonna make things a lot simpler. Now just follow me on this one. If you start typing in Firebase list adapter, you can see that it shows in suggestions. So for to use this you need to make sure that you are including the Firebase UI dependency. So I'm going to set Firebase list adapter of type string, and I'm going to name it Firebase list adapter equals new Firebase list adapter. If you hit tab, it's going to create the code for you. So make sure that you include the semicolon at the end. And Now you can see that it's showing this red underline for this one. That means it needs some parameters. So actually it needs four parameters, and first one is going to be the context. Next, the type, so we will be retrieving data as string. Next is going to be layout, so I'm going to set it to very default dot layout dot simple list item. And now last one is going to be our database reference, so from where we are retrieving the data. All right, so make sure that you include the object users at the end, so we can retrieve data from this object, not from the root database over here. So now you can see that it creates a new method for us, that is populate view, and inside this method it returns us three things: the view, model, and position of the model. So what we can do is we can use a text view to text view from view.findViewById, and it's going to be equal to r android.r.id.text1. and now you can set this text view sort dot set text to our string that is returned by our populate view, that is model. So now our text view is set. All we need to do is mList view, which is our list view over here. We have referenced it to this list view, and now we can set adapter for this one, dot set adapter to our Firebase list adapter that we have created over here. So now if you hit play button, just let me recheck it again that we haven't missed anything. All right, everything is looking fine to me. And make sure you have added the name over here, and yep, so there is no error. I guess it's running pretty fine. Yeah, now you can see that it has retrieved the data. In previous parts we were using add value event listener or child event listeners to retrieve data, but there was a lot of code going over there, and we need to use like events for even if child is added, child is removed, or it's changed. But if you are using Firebase list adapter, you don't need to worry about anything. So if you come over here and let me show you quickly, if I say some name or type in some name, let me just type in, if you hit enter, the name is changed. I can see that it's updated over here. Even if you remove it, it updates quickly in real time. If you add it, user for some new user, hit enter, now it says some new user is added. So using Firebase list adapter is pretty easy. All you need to do is make sure you change from old code to the newer one. And if you remember, we have already done the user authentication, and that code was actually the newer one, not the older code, so you don't need to worry about that. But you need to change your mref code, the reference from previous one to this newer one, and also the set context to get instance. So this is pretty much it for this part, and in the next part we're going to take a look at how you can retrieve images from your phone and you can store it in your Firebase database. So see you guys in the next part.